Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family and joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Our guest today is a returning guest, Thomas Ray Garcia. He is here to tell us about the wonderful things that the College Scholarship Leadership Access Program is doing for kids down in South Texas. Hey, before our guest comes in, we gave a sneak preview of the Solve It for Kids podcast here on Reading with Your Kids, and it was so popular, it's like spun off. It spun off into its own thing. And my buddy, our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson, is here to tell us a little bit about what's going on with this great new podcast. Hey, Jennifer, what's up?
Hi, Jed. Oh, I am so excited about our new podcast. We've been getting some great reviews. Everybody wants to find out what's going on and meet and listen to some of our scientists and engineers. We have done how do you map an underwater forest?
Yeah.
We have done how do you cut a person in half safely, of course.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We have talked about improving your connection with water by going on a water walk, and we have watched Vanessa Brantley Newton create illustrations that come to life.
I took a water walk with my amazing niece. We had such a great time. I didn't fall into the water, but it was really, really fun. And I love the fact that all of our guests are giving our wonderful listeners challenges, really fun challenges that they can do together as a family. And that's so cool. Hey, tell everybody where they can find Solve It for Kids, because it's not on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's its own thing.
So please, if you want to keep listening, go over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and subscribe. And you can download all 4 of the first episodes that we have, plus listen to all the new ones we have coming out. You can also find on Stitcher Radio and, of course, through our website, solveitforkids.com.
Jennifer, thanks so much. Thanks for letting me be part of this awesome, awesome, awesome podcast.
Well, we make a great STEM team, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, join us over at solveitforkids.com. Join us right now from the Rio Grande Valley and the great state of Texas. He is returning to the show. You may remember he was on the program a few weeks back talking with his partner, Matt Eventoff, about Speechless. Please welcome back to the show, Thomas Ray Garcia. Thomas, good to see you. How are you?
Oh, Jed, it is great to see you again. I am doing very well down here in the valley. It's nice and sunny, and I'm looking forward to talking about my nonprofit CSLAP.
Yes, Thomas is rubbing it in. It's nice and warm and sunny down there. We just get hit with a big snowstorm here in Boston, but it's also sunny, and I can't see the snow from the studio right now. I can see the sunshine. So we're both enjoying the sunshine today. I'm really excited to learn about CSLAP. We mentioned it a little bit when we spoke the last time, but I really want to dive into it because I think it's really important. We talk about the value of reading with our kids, and that's something that we should do with our kids throughout their lives. And I think that when we read with our kids, we're setting up the foundation. We're starting a lifelong conversation that can hopefully help kids when they start making decisions about college. And that's what your program's all about.
Yes, CSLAP stands for College Scholarship Leadership Access Program. And it's a nonprofit I founded down here in the Rio Grande Valley. Each of those terms in the title matter so much to high school seniors like myself back in 2012 when I was applying to college as a first-generation low-income student. And I realized there was a lot of stuff I didn't know, and there were a lot of gaps that I was falling into in both learning about resources, accessing them, whether they were about college or scholarships, and then personally developing as a leader throughout my senior year, making that jump to age 18, and eventually making that jump to Princeton, New Jersey, where I attended college. It was a huge leap, and fortunately I stumbled upon the right resources and the right information at the right times. But there were a lot of systemic barriers that could have easily led me astray, from not getting a recommendation letter on time, to not submitting a financial aid form, to not taking the right test. So when I graduated high school, I wanted to come back and help out the Rio Grande Valley high schools, and I decided to found a summer program. And that's what CSLAP initially started as for about 5 years, coming back to my alma mater and just hosting a bunch of programming over the summer for high school seniors. Eventually, my first job out of college was to teach at this high school, and I was able to take the CSLAP programming over the summer, make it into an academic year course for 9th through 12th graders, and essentially institutionalize it at the district. And now, since 2019, we've been incorporated as a nonprofit, helping other school districts in the area with very similar things.
You know, I'm really excited to have you on and to talk about this. We've had a couple of conversations about financial literacy and about the fact that we really don't talk to kids. We don't think we talk to kids about finances, but we actually are. You know, when we're telling them when they're 5 and 6 years old that they need to do well in school so they can get into a good college. So they have this idea, I got to go to college, I got to go to college. And then they're in high school, and then it's like, I got to go to college, but I don't, how am I going to afford that? And, I got to take a loan. I'll take a loan out. And, boy, I didn't realize when I took that loan out, I'm going to have a $200,000 loan to pay off for the next 20 years. And so we don't have those conversations, and we need to. And I also don't think we understand, especially families that haven't had somebody go to college. They don't understand that it's not like applying for renting a hotel room. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of hoops and challenges, and if you don't have that inside scoop information, you're really behind the 8 ball.
I totally agree. It started as something as simple as not knowing about a certain opportunity or resource ahead of time. Mm-hmm. When you have a strong system at your high school, you'll have teachers and counselors in place knowing it's October. That means the FAFSA is open. That means we have to do certain events to make sure everybody fills out the financial aid form. And then discovering who can't apply to federal aid, they can apply to the state aid. And how do you reach out to the parents proactively to make sure they have the tax forms? And so just one simple thing can turn into a huge planning issue if you don't yet know your students well and you don't have a strong network within the school. So what CSLAP attempts to do is come from the outside in and provide near-peer mentors, students who just went through the college application process, people who are in college or recently college graduated from the area, to come back and help out the students in ways that often school employees can't. And one of the many ways is providing a role model for many young people who otherwise don't have an older brother or sister or a parent who went to college. So we come in as early 20-year-olds, and in my case, a little late 20-year-old, and come in to try to teach these very specific parts of the college application process that can be easily overlooked. And the one that I often focus on is a college admissions essay. I use it in the short term to first get something really important done for the process that often English teachers don't, which is just write the thing. So when you go to your financial aid counselor, you can say, I have my essay, I'm ready to apply to college, and there's no barrier in place. And the other thing is I like to make it into a leadership activity where the students can feel empowered about writing their stories. It's not just putting yourself on the paper for the sake of getting into college, but you can get to learn about yourself much better. And often it's the first time students write about their identity, especially here along the U.S.-Mexico border. Being an immigrant, being Mexican, being brown skin is kind of the norm. And they don't really think of it as something that makes them stand out or as unique when it comes to these colleges. So for many of them, it's the first time they come into that consciousness. And I love leading them along that way. So not only do they get into college, but I see them grow so much within a single year.
Mm. How important is that for the kids to have that role model, that young person that they can identify with?
It is so crucial to have these near-peer mentors because they serve as an in-between role between teacher, counselor, older brother, sister, someone who can fill in each of those roles when needed, especially when it comes to something as complex as the college application process, where you both need an advisor and counselor guiding you with the resources. You need a teacher being able to hone in some skills like your writing and public speaking. And you also need that motivator who can say, hey, I did this too, and I came from a similar background as you just a couple years ago. And in some cases, that role model sat at the same seat. They sat in at the high school. So they can say, this was exactly what I went through. Here's how you can overcome it as well. And the other issue is when they get to the other side, when they get to college, they can come back with that invaluable advice. Often high schools send students out the graduation door and they're never heard from again. But the near peer mentors come back and fill in that gap between this is what happened the summer after high school. This is what happened my first semester at my freshman year at this university, especially when the students go upstate or out of state of Texas. It's so crucial that when you're a low income or first generation college student, you can get to learn what's called the hidden curriculum, which is when you get to a university, picking up the tips and tricks to really succeed when you get there, not just in your classes, but learning how to network with your professors, learning how to learn from your peers, getting ahead with the resources given to you like Career Center, and being able to be successful and thrive, not just survive at college.
Why do you think schools, for the most part, don't provide this education? I mean, schools are constantly pounding on kids, you got to go to college, but they don't give them the resources that your program is giving them. And it just confuses me. I don't know. It's like, you got to do this, but you got to do it on your own.
Yes, to a certain extent, in my area, it's because of the large school size, and counselors and teachers are often overburdened with the essential things. So my counselor's title was financial aid counselor in 2012. It wasn't college counselor, it wasn't college access counselor, it was just financial aid counselor. And their main goal was to fill out the financial aid form, the FAFSA. And once you did that, then their job was essentially done. Everything else after that was supplemental. And we argue it's actually the essential part, because now you filled out financial aid, but now you got to apply to college, and you have to find out which ones that are applicable to you, which ones will you thrive at. You have to win the scholarships to get there. You have to learn how to thrive when you get there. So those things we consider crucial to that hidden curriculum that students can often get stuck in, and they do the bare essentials the school requires, but everything else has to fall in their lap. So slowly, when we started as a summer program and then slowly became an academic year course, we influenced my school district to where we focused more so on the college application process, making sure everybody felt like they were college material. Everybody got the right information, resources, mentorship, no matter what kind of student they were, and they were treated equally to make sure that they all had equal access to applying to college. So it wasn't just filling out forms, but once you got those in, the real journey began, which is, okay, let's connect you with so-and-so who graduated this many years ago. I know of a great resource for you in particular. Let me connect you to it. And the schools have been getting much better at that since then, once we put everything like this on the table.
You know, the idea of connecting kids with mentors, it seems, I went to a private Catholic high school here in Boston, and they have this incredible alumni network of just, you know, and it's not a formal mentorship, but, you know, if I go over to the school and I say, I have a podcast and I'm wondering if there's anybody who graduated that writes children's books, I'll get a computer readout and telephone numbers, and it's, we love connecting people. And boy, and I know places like Princeton and Harvard, they have these networks. I see the value of that. Was that where you got the inspiration to go back to your district to build that kind of network from the ground up?
It actually was. My first semester at Princeton, I met my peers who seemed to have that social capital I just didn't have coming in. I was so focused on, let's get the work done in the class, and I didn't necessarily understand the importance of connecting with my peers and building a network. And so many of them had already come in with that network. I looked back to my high school and thought, what if we start building this early on? And it's not like a leap of faith going from my high school to an out-of-state university, but more students can feel like other people have done this in the past. I know who to reach out to if I'm going to go to the East Coast. And that was what started CSLAP in the first place. I had a very close friend in the class of 2013 at high school who was informing me that he was going through the same issues I went through when I was applying to college in 2012. And we were messaging each other on social media. Back then it wasn't as big as it is today. And fortunately, I was able to help him with those gaps that I almost fell into. And eventually we started this network that students know so-and-so went to X university in this state at this year. And slowly we started adding this network to our school district. So this institutional memory, I call it. The school district knows they have access to this long list of alumni that I just didn't have access to when I was applying to Princeton. I knew of one young woman who had applied and got into Brown in 2010 at my high school, but 2 years later when I was applying, I had no way of contacting her, and the school had no way of contacting her. So that was the impetus to say, okay, there needs to be some system here. I want to make sure no student feels like they don't have that access to a mentor, to at the very least ask questions about what their experience was like.
Mm. Tell me, Thomas, how important is it for kids in the Rio Grande Valley and kids in other areas around the country? How important is it for them to have access to a college education?
It is so crucial because the Rio Grande Valley often gets written off as a U.S.-Mexico borderland area. We often get defined by our poverty, high diabetes rates, border violence. Whatever you look at from the news, our area gets angled in as a negative. And I've always viewed education as that great equalizer, and I believe every single student, no matter what background they come from, can be college material if they're given the right info, resources, mentorship. So I approach every single school district that we partner with that mindset, because I see the potential on the ground. I see the hunger for improvement. The students here realize that the Valley is so ripe for improvement and for growth. All you have to do is first get them into the college, get them the social capital, and then bring them back so they can bring capital into the area. Brain drain is a serious issue in my area. One of the reasons is not enough professional jobs. The other issue is many people want to come back and work and help out here. They just don't know how. And I frame CSLAP to our mentors as a medium through which they can give back in a very simple way. For example, there is a Princeton classmate of mine who was born and raised just a couple of miles from my hometown, and we went to Princeton together. Came from very similar low-income backgrounds. She currently works at Microsoft in Seattle. I'm able to connect her with computer science students down here in the Valley who often never would have met or even imagined that someone from these towns can go and work for Microsoft. So simply connecting with someone, whether it's in person or on Zoom, can make a huge difference and a huge ripple effect on a student's life. And I think if we provide more access to more mentors like that, the Rio Grande Valley will slowly change, and more of these professionals will come back and want to help out the youth of the future. And many of these people can give back in their own unique ways.
Yeah. You know, this idea of mentorship, it sounds like it's this new idea, but it's actually the way humans kind of developed up until fairly recently. It was the idea of apprenticeship and then mentorship and working with folks that in that profession, in that trade, and learning from them, as opposed to just go off to that institution, learn something, and then maybe come back and we can help you up.
It is, and it's just a matter of how you get it into a program and make it effective. Because giving advice is one thing, but making it systematic to where you're going to connect a near-peer mentor to a high school student under certain conditions, which is, I'm going to help you tell your story. I'm going to help you determine which colleges are best fits for you. I'm going to provide you these resources because I know they're great fits for you, and they'll help you grow. And when you get to university, I know in what ways I can help you grow when you get there. So when you put a system in place and you put that mentor and the mentee, especially in a college setting, which is just ripe for growth, a lot of amazing things can happen. And so showing that to my school district and growing this program to other local school districts in the Rio Grande Valley has been my lifelong mission, ever since getting to college, because I want more students to experience that growth I experienced coming from a very low income area, but yet being able to get a full ride scholarship to Princeton University and being able to experience that growth. I wanted other students to have access to that beautiful opportunity. Mm-hmm. And if there's anything I can do individually to do so, I will do it. And if it means bringing a lot more people along on the ride to make sure they can have their own respective mentees and their own ripple effects in the community, then I'm all for it.
Yeah. One of the words in the CSLAP name is leadership. How can we best help our kids everywhere kind of see themselves as leaders?
The first step is empowering their first and foremost identity. What I've learned with students is when I ask them, what do you want to write about on this college admissions essay? They often have an idea, they just aren't certain that it's worth writing about, or if X university wants to hear about that. Down here in the Valley, I often expect to hear being Hispanic, or being an immigrant, or being low income. But sometimes students start at the more granular level. I'm a soccer player, or I'm a bigger brother. Something that might seem a little more universal, but it's still informed by those other identities I mentioned earlier. Because being a big brother in a low-income household with a single parent along the border is something very different than anywhere else. So once you start connecting the dots, I feel that the students begin to become leaders in their own right. They first feel that their stories are unique, and it's not just something that is a pity, but rather an empowerment story. And from there, they start to gain the skills in order to articulate that story. I focus on the writing. Once they learn how to get the words on paper, I like to help them speak their story through interviews and public speaking practicums. And they take these skills with them when they get to college, and part of that leadership development when they make that leap is learning how to make the right decisions for themselves when they get to college, being a great self-advocate, learning how to write that email to the professor in a class you're not really sure of how you're doing, learning how to go to office hours proactively, learning how to access and know the resources at the university, like the Career Center, like the Fellowship Center, opportunities you might not take advantage of, like study abroad, but you still know they exist and you can name them off the top of your head from your university. You're basically settled and you know what is at hand's reach. That is how I define leadership in the college access context. From that, I see the students come out a lot more confident. They come out willing and ready to give all this invaluable advice to more students, and they thrive at college and not just survive.
And I think that's something that's important, is to help our kids, wherever they are, thrive and not just survive. There's a big difference between those two.
There truly is, because I define surviving in college as I need to get my work done, I'm struggling, I'm just going to try to get the passing grade. And it's easy to miss the forest through the trees, because often when students go to college, they think that is the thing I need to do. I need to pass my classes. They don't see through the hidden curriculum, which is I need to network. I need to meet my professors and my peers. I need to start growing individually, culturally. I need to be able to take advantage of an opportunity like study abroad or an internship outside of my comfort zone so I can grow. And every time I come back to my community, how am I giving back in the short amount of time I have? And once I graduate, what is my life path? So not just my career, not just what I'm doing for an income, but what is my life path? How can I use that career to actually make an impact in and throughout my life? So the thriving part is where the actual growth happens, in my view. And once you settle the conditions in which the student can easily survive college, often by giving them a mentor and helping them along the way, they can actually feel like they're growing in very comfortable ways once they get there.
So much to think about, and it's exciting. It's exciting for me to know that there's a program like CSLAP out there that's helping, because I'm a firm believer, and I think it was President Kennedy that said, a high tide lifts all boats, and that's, I'm tired of the competition. It's great, Super Bowl, winners, losers, that's wonderful, but in life, we need to start working together so that everybody's a winner, so that everybody can succeed, find happiness, live in a world that's just, has some equity, and that's better for everyone, I think. doesn't make sense to some people are winners and some people are losers. How can I be happy if I know that there are people out there suffering?
Yes, in the high school class, you see students from so many different types of backgrounds in one place, and they're located in different areas of the class, but you can reach out to them at the same time you reach out to everybody else. So when you're walking into a classroom and you teach a lesson on college admissions, keep in mind the diverse range of students that you're talking to. You may not know all of their stories. They might come from very different backgrounds. Some of them might be college ready, some of them might not. But by simply walking in and giving them that equal chance, it does lift everybody up, and it makes them feel like, I do have a shot at this. Let me see how I can get ahead a little bit and catch up to my peers. And for those already ahead, how can I get even more ahead and possibly help my other peers who are struggling? And that is the concept of near-peer mentorship, is that you always get the wheel going. You never let that experience you went through go to waste just for yourself. You give it back, and you're able to make it easier for the next person.
Awesome. Hey, in a minute, I'm going to ask you how folks can get involved and help support you. But before I do, I have someone very near and dear to my heart is struggling with this, and one of the things that she's struggling with is this idea of speaking her story, sharing her story. And one of the things that's frustrating for her is that she's needing to write this story in English, and English isn't her first language. And even though she is fluent in English, she was sharing with me just the other night. She goes, I know how to say it so much better in Spanish, and I don't know how to take the Spanish word and turn it into English. And Google, when I put it into Google, it comes out. It sounds crazy, and so that's the frustration she's dealing with.
Yeah, and I actually see that often down here along the border. ESL and students who often struggle to speak English in the first place write these essays in English, and they feel like they're not getting across their best self. And for those students, I often recommend beginning with the images. So can you describe the image and the scene you're trying to make, even if it's in Spanish, and then we can work together one-on-one to translate the key aspects into English. And I often find that the grammatical aspects of the sentence might change, but the key idea remains. Mm-hmm. What am I trying to say about myself through this image or through this scene? And why am I beginning with this scene or ending with this scene in the first place? Am I trying to convey certain positive qualities about myself? Am I trying to convey a particular memory that matters to me and says something about me to the admissions office? There are so many things that we often overlook that admissions offices across the country hone in on. And specifically, they realize that college-age students, especially those who are about to enter college, aren't yet masterful writers. And so if you make minor mistakes here and there, they won't penalize you for it, even if you feel like you're not writing your best sentence or you're writing your best essay. The best advice I have for the college admissions essay is to always get across something you truly want to write about yourself. And there's no wrong answer as long as you're writing to the prompt and you're writing true to yourself.
I know that folks are going to want to help out. And so where can they go to find out more about CSLAP and maybe get involved?
They can visit our website at CSLAPofficial.com. They can also put CSLAP into Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and they'll see our bright yellow-orange logo with the graduation cap on top. And I would deeply appreciate any help I can receive, either through near-peer mentors, donors, people who are willing to spread the word about near-peer mentorship. I think if more high schools across the country got onto the near-peer mentorship model, I think a lot of our students would feel more uplifted. From communities along the border to rural America to urban communities, I think near-peer mentorship is such a crucial aspect to college access, and it can fill in those gaps that we often read and write about in our education research, and we see every single day in our high schools. But we just don't have a system yet of how to correct it. And I find that near-peer mentorship can do that.
So, and that was, you just answered a question that I had. Is it, this is more than just the Rio Grande Valley. This is something that can, uplift kids all over the country. And are you available if there's a high school out there in Appalachia or in the inner city in Boston or Camden, New Jersey, or out in California somewhere, if they're interested in doing something like this, are they able to reach out to you and get started or ask for your advice?
I would love to help out. I would love to help out with the extensive programming experience we have. We've existed since 2013, and we've transformed from summer program to academic year course to nonprofit. And I have a wealth of experience and knowledge I'd love to share with people who are wondering, how do I systemize this? How do I implement this in any different way I can at my school district or community? So they can reach out to us at CSLAPofficial@gmail.com. Send us an email, and I'd love to set up a Zoom meeting with you and talk you through what is ailing your community, what can we do to make sure that the school district systems can bring back talent and make sure that they're utilizing all the social capital that they're sending off to the colleges. How do they bring them back, and how do they uplift the next generation?
Absolutely. We've had a really eye-opening conversation with the founder of CSLAP, College Scholarship Leadership Access Program, Thomas Ray Garcia. Thomas, thanks so much for being back in the show, and more importantly, thank you so much for what you're doing for not only the youth in Rio Grande Valley, but for everybody here in the States.
Jed, thank you for having me back yet again and for helping me spread the word about my work here. And I do hope that by spreading it far and wide, people from across the country can reach out and we can spread good news and good work across the country through your podcast. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Brandy Pierce. She is the Reading with Your Kids certified great read author of Mommy's Oven. She will be here to celebrate her wonderful book, talking about surrogacy. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I want to thank the team who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Thomas Ray Garcia. Please check out the College Scholarship Leadership Access Program. It really is worthy of our attention. It absolutely is worthy of our support. Thank you, Thomas, for everything you're doing for those families down in South Texas. I also want to thank my team here at the podcast, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, our amazing interns, Hannah Pat Oboyski, Alexia Brown. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.